Hello everyone, this is a video for a 1992 and older Ranger to change the disc caliper. I'm doing currently the front right. This is a non-4-wheel drive, this is just a 2-wheel drive vehicle. I started the video off a little bit later. He had already removed the dust cap. It's very easy to remove. Once you get the wheel off, you just get a screwdriver and you just pry it off. Wanted to let you guys know there's already a lot of other videos on how to remove the pads. So the brake pads, once they're removed, I'm just kind of showing you guys a little bit what you have to do. You have to hammer out the pins. This one does have pins in it, so with the pins out, you can just pull the brakes off. Make sure to take the lid off of the master cylinder so you don't blow the master cylinder, because fluid will go back up, because what he's doing is he's moving it now so he can just take it off. And also, normally you are supposed to hang that brake pad holder, I forget what it's called, and that way it doesn't put pressure in the line. He didn't do that. I actually ended up doing it later on. He said when they're new lines it doesn't really matter, but I still take the precautions, and I like to put the zip ties on it. But so this video is going to be a bit longer. I'll just discuss the important part. So right there he's explaining that because my the disc caliper, the disc brake, had wear from the previous owner, he never changed the brake pads, and it formed deep grooves behind the disc brake, which is something I never noticed. But the cause was, or the issue was, only this side was grinding pretty bad when I would hit the brake. And so he was explaining that because I put new brake pads on it and didn't check the back of the caliper of the disc brake, of the rotor, I'm sorry, it's called a rotor. So after time, the new brake pad would eventually start chipping away at the other sides that weren't grooved in. You'll see when the caliper is removed that there is grooves in it. Now, he took out a safety lock, or they call it a castle pin. You do have to remove the bearings in order to take off the bearings. So there's a castle nut, a castle pin, and so right now what he's doing, he's just basically he's gonna take off the castle nut, and like I said, the first thing you gotta do is you gotta pull that safety pin out of there, and then you can just unscrew it out. Once you unscrew it out, the whole rotor should come out at that point. That's the only thing holding it back, is the safety pin, and then of course the castle nut. So once that's done, you take it out. He's gonna pull it out. You should see what I'm talking about. There it is right there. You see those deep grooves? That's from not changing your brake pads and letting them, get, the screeching down to the metal. Now, unfortunately, the previous owner was hard of hearing, so he never knew that there was anything wrong with his brakes. So glad I caught that. Glad it didn't lead to worse failures, because it actually could have created, brakes inside, the disc caliper, could have destroyed it, but I heard it grinding and I didn't drive anymore. And it didn't just start. I've been driving, with this setup for about a good couple years, and it just took a while, but the grinding eventually got bad. So now what he's gonna do is he should be removing the bearings. And from that, easily you just get a tool with an extension and just punch it out, and it will just fall out. He's gonna lift it up, and there it is right there. It is important to note that there is, the grease does have to be cleaned, the old grease, and new grease does have to be applied. You do have to purchase high temp grease for this. A lot of people do have older grease. Use upon your discretion. You think your old grease is fine, Mine is about 6 years old, so it's still not that bad, and I've always had it covered. He said normally some people they do end up just repacking with grease and not really cleaning it, but because he likes to do a good job, he likes to clean it with brake clean it all out, and then just re-add new grease to it. So that's what it looks like without the rotor on it. You do have to inspect for visual damage too there too. Sometimes you may see that the other parts where the rotor goes on could be damaged. You want to look into that, clean that off if you see any debris on there. And then of course I'm showing you of course what the rotor looked like from behind. Now normally if it's that bad, you're supposed to look on both sides, but I just never paid attention to the back. I assumed since the front side was good, there was nothing wrong with the back, but the back was completely destroyed. It was just, the grooves were about ½ an inch deep, and that could have, been the end. If I had stopped hard, there's a possibility that it just would have snapped. And so luckily I got this, in time. Here he's showing that what he was telling me is that when you change out the rotor, you want to use, especially if you're changing out the rotor on both sides, what you want to use is the same bearing for each side. You don't want to mismatch the bearings. He said if you take the bearing off with the rotor on the left, you don't want to confuse it with the one for the right, because that it wears unevenly. And so he's just packing on grease now at this point. He's already cleaned it with brake clean and a rag. You can use gloves for the grease, it's not that bad, but if you don't want to if you don't care about getting your hands dirty, you can go and apply it like he did. Put it on the way it came off. There was also a gasket, a metal gasket that he didn't show tapping in behind of it. I didn't record tapping behind it. Once you tap the metal gasket, after you put the bearing back in there, you just put the rotor back on and put the castle nut and of course the safety pin, the cotter pin is what they call it, and you tighten up. Now he said this is pretty important. He said you don't want to over tighten, you just want to tighten to where it's just enough to spin, like hand tight. And you can tell because it's freely moving, but it's at the same time it will stop. And he says it's hand tight where it's just good enough. There's no play, moving it around. And then of course insert the pin. It should spin freely like that. If it spins freely like that, but it does eventually stop, that's good. Now you do have a problem if you spin it and it doesn't stop, that's a problem. It means it's too loose. You may have to straighten out the cotter pin so that, and use a pair of needle nose pliers to get it in there, right? Because you have to bend it also upon taking out, so you might take it out a little bit bent. This is probably the easiest part of the job. Is just taking out the cotter pin. Super easy. You may want to inspect also the cotter pin, make sure it's not broken or about to break. These things do get brittle over time, and you'll know that as soon as it breaks, you can't use it anymore. It's just real cheap. Just buy a cotter pin, get some for like less than $1 for a pack. You also to make sure you clean out the grease from the dust cap and repack it, which we already did too as well. And once you repack it, you go ahead and you don't want to put a glob of grease in there, just repack the inner sides of it, just good enough. It's gonna melt with the heat anyways, and eventually just sit in one side. But yeah, just put a little bit in there, around there. You also want to put grease on the outer parts of the brake pad holder, so it doesn't make any noise when you stop. Sometimes people forget to do that, and it does make a screeching noise, and it's normal. It's not the brake pads ending, or it's just the way it is. If you don't forget to put the grease, it'll never go away either. As you can see there, I did put a zip tie on the brake pad on the caliper, and so this is the easy part also, is putting the caliper back on. Don't forget to squeeze the, I forget what that's called, part of the caliper back in. Now I used the C-clamp, that was easier for me. He just used, a long set of pliers, which you can do in both too. So this is the hardest part, I would say, for me at least, is when I did the brake pads, is putting these pins back in. He didn't have any special tricks. You struggle nonetheless. He just was more experienced than I was doing this, and so it took him less time. But I'll just let you watch how it's done. Basically, all it is 2 pins, one on the bottom, one on the top, and they go through enough to hold the calipers in the back and in the front. Just basically pointing out that you have to align the caliper with the rotor, not the rotor, with the caliper holder before you put the brake pads on. And he said make sure you don't put them in reverse. Sometimes people will do that. There is a front and there is a back part of the brake pads, so you'll know the way that they fit. bear in mind, also inspect your pins. They do have rubber grommets in between them that hold the pins together. Make sure that you inspect the rubber in the inside. It's real easy just to get new ones if they're chewed up or just with age, gone. You will need a pretty good sized hammer to do this. They do require some beating to straighten it in there. Also, something to note, once you get the pin in there, you do have to make sure that the edges of the pin align with the sharpest part of where it is. That's the best way I can explain it. It's like the top of a triangle. You do have to align it. I'm gonna go ahead and let this video play out. There's really nothing else to it. That was the hardest part right there. It was just, like I said, for me, I've never taken off the rotors before. They do involve bearings. I've already taken off the brake pad a couple times. That's easy. I just had them do it just to kind of show, because it's hard to show myself working on the pins. I have other videos in there as well too, but yeah, they can be quite a pain in the neck there. Yeah, alright, well, I'll let this video play out. You can see what we're doing here. We're just hammering the pins. That's pretty much it. I'll let this video play out. Thank you so much. Hope this helped you out.